Our next speaker is Dr. Dominik Berger. Dr. Berger graduated from the University of Bern and worked in the University Equine Clinic, primarily in the fields of equine medicine and exercise physiology. Since 1992, he has worked at the Swiss National Stud, responsible for the research program, the Equine Reproduction Unit, and associated equine clinic. Dr. Berger is involved in a wide variety of research programs, and he is a member of the Horse Commission Board of the European Federation of Animal Science, INRA, and the board of the European State Stud Association. Dr. Berger is also president of the veterinary commissions of the breeding associations for Swiss sport horses. This morning he's going to talk to us about the use of non-steroidals and particularly the ethical issues. Thank you, Dr. Berger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to Graham Cook and the FEI for inviting me. I liked this picture when I prepared this speech here. First of all, it mentions we change a bit topic. Second thing is perhaps it's a topic where we are swimming a little bit at the moment. In every case, if we would change the sport to let's swim the sport, we wouldn't need this conference because we would need for sure not so much NSAIDs. So the topic is ethics and breeding. I have to go here. Topic of very high actuality, as you all know, not only in sport, also in other domains. Topic where a lot of activities actually are taking place on a national basis, but also internationally, as we are here, for example, but nationally, especially workshops are organized, meetings, roundtables. So a lot of activities and an increasing research work, and what I find very positive, interdisciplinary scientific approach. That means different disciplines which meet, like for example at the EAP Congress in Barcelona last year, or other conferences in France. I have nevertheless to go back here. So I'm also a vet. I'm not a philosopher, don't be afraid. I give you a bit of feedback, what is in the moment the approach, what is thought by all these disciplines when they are working together. First of all, we have to clarify some definitions. We speak a lot about ethics, but what is ethics? Ethics is coming from ethos, which is a custom, a habit, and ethics are defined as a branch of philosophy. It's a philosophy which seeks to address questions about morality. We are speaking so about morality in the next 15 minutes. This is concepts such as good and bad, the noble and the ignoble, right or wrong, justice or virtue. So we are speaking about values, and these values, they changed over the time in the evolution of human beings. We start with antique concepts and we go until ethical values from this time today. We don't go now we don't pass too much time in this topic because we could speak here 2 hours. Just give you some examples. The first man who spoke about ethics was Aristotle, and for him animals were of a non-rational, non-mental nature. This was also continued by the theocentrism, where God was the central aspect to existence of human being, and human beings like that, they are the guardians of world and nature, and they may utilize nature as they think it's good. There are people in the Middle Age like René Descartes, which described the mechanical concept, and for them, the bodies, they are like machines, and like that, animals are also machines because they don't have a mind. This is made the mechanical concept, which for some people can also be actually still today. It's not all forgotten. And only since 200 years about, there were then first considerations about welfare of the horse. This came first time by people which followed the utilitarianism. You can read it yourself, this complicated word, where the greatest objective is happiness, so they followed the greatness happiness principle. And there, Jerry Bentham, he asked the first time the question, not only can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? This was the first approach to animal welfare, and it took nevertheless some years until not a long time ago, 1965, where the first guidelines in Great Britain were established, and a welfare advisory committee was established, and these 5 freedoms were defined. So the welfare issue is still quite a young tissue, and as we all know, we have a lot of research. There is a lot of scientific evaluation done on that. We still have our problems, and we had yesterday a lot of discussions always around a bit that. But sorry for about that. So this was this is all scientifically looked at, this welfare, and followed all that by regulations, because regulations, they are, if you want, the mirror of our society. You heard this morning about that, national regulations, but also EU regulations, and last but not least, since 1991, as you all know, the FEI Code of Conduct, also as a regulation, in principle followed by the opinion of society. In a way, I have no chance here. But there are also other points of view, not only welfare. Albert Schweitzer described respect of life, Mary Midgley empathy, Bernard Rollin the interests of animal. What means there are also, and I think that's a bit my objective for the next minutes, there are also other issues than only strictly welfare. We also have to think about integrity of the animal, the intrinsic value of the animal. We can also speak about economical pressures, honesty also. These are ethical values. Biodiversity, ecosystem impacts. This list can continue as long as you want. It's not only the welfare issue that we should look at that. Here, the integrity, the animal integrity, describes the wholeness of the animal and the species balance of the creature, as well as the animal's capacity to maintain itself independently in an environment suitable to the species. This integrity is something, can be a very important value for a society who doesn't want to see pictures like that horses don't want to run anymore and you have to pull them because this horse is not anymore in its wholeness, in a full integrity. Then we speak about a very important value, the intrinsic value, which is the value that the animal possesses in his own right as an end itself, and as opposed to the instrumental value. What do I mean with that? For example, you can see this example. This horse is not anymore a horse. This is completely instrumentalized, and this the intrinsic value of this pony would be very small. We have also examples in sport. I have here a photo of the Olympic Games in Hong Kong, where all the eventing horses after cross-country were infused. Is that what we want? I ask you, is that what you want? That horses need infusions to do the sport? Or is that now nevertheless too much sport and not anymore horse? Also, I don't know how to do that better. Here we have already in Europe regulations which adopt these thinkings, these thoughts. The Dutch regulations or the Swiss constitution, which takes into account the dignity, the integrity of the animal. So we have to ask us today not only questions about welfare, but we have also to ask what intrinsic value we want to give to the sport horses. Is this value objective? What intrinsic value society gives to sport horses? This is not absolutely for sure that it's the same. How to identify and to measure it? And is this intrinsic value universal, everywhere applicable? Here the evolution of endurance, and probably here the question is no. In every case, data and collaborations with human science are here for sure still needed. I don't know. What we can do? We can do, everybody of us at home here can do a case-to-case evaluation. I think this is a nice result of a Swiss roundtable ethics in the horse. You can ask yourself these 5 questions. Is the horse having pain? Is it suffering? Is he fearful? Is he in his ability of the horse? Is he overused? Is the appearance of the horse discriminated? Are there signs of indignity? And are there exceeding means to an end? Means is there too much instrumentalization taking place? We have taken the decision. We use the horses in sport. It's not a question that we put them all in the field. But the question would be, is it still on the borderline or too much? It's a very interesting approach, but it's still an approach inside our black box where we are in the moment. I think when we are speaking here in the name of an international federation and of our national federations, we have to use a much more pluralistic approach. That means an approach which looks at this black box not only from inside but also from outside. That means here in black, what we all did already at this Congress, we look how are the horses, what think the riders, what we thinking the vets, but important also is what this public is thinking about what we are deciding here, what we are wanting. And this public has other values than that. It's more the general society values, morality, ethical values, and they can be welfare, equity, for example. It was mentioned yesterday in the nice speech of Rolly Owens, justice, transparency, duties, responsibilities, and as I said, especially this intrinsic value, and especially when we are speaking this afternoon how we want to go on in the topic, we have to discuss especially all which is now a bit strong here. Siebel changes when it wants here. This all has to be discussed, and I think not only welfare, whenever this is a very important topic. As an example, some words about breeding. I was asked for ethics and breeding. It's not a very elegant bridge here. We don't speak about cloning, ICSI, and all this stuff. We want to stay in the topic NSAIDs, and there we can applicate again our welfare point of view. And I can give here for once a very simple answer. If we are looking 3 papers which were established about the use of NSAIDs in breeding horses, we have clear answers. They harm not at all the fertility in stallions. In the mares, it could give some problems around ovulation. This is not the topic here. So no problem with fertility, no problem with first view, a welfare point of view. But if we are doing here a bit more general pluralistic point of view, then we look again welfare and fertility, but we also look genetics, and genetics, that means our future horse generations. What we can say there. Looking about in the breeders' business, this is especially important thing is selection, and selection is based on conformation, on gaits, behavior and performance, as you know all, and very important for economics of breeder, health and stamina and fitness. We have for that a scientific approach by the national federations which calculate about 45 values, and this gives in the end of every horse a breeding value. This is a bit the approach how it is done, but it's important to know that in the breeding value, health and stamina are not included. That's quite important to know. Selection for health is only taking place by approvals for stallion, for example. Nearly every country applies a quite severe approval for stallion selection, and the other possibility to select for health are the sport results. We have the philosophy that performance breeding means in the same time health breeding. This is in the last year a very important aspect of breeding horses, that we consider a horse which is doing a good performance over a long time, it will also be in a good health. We have, on the other hand, genetic research which supports this selection for health by calculation of heritability values. That means how much is inherited from the parents, how much is influenced by the environment. A new research domain is studies about longevity. That means how long horses live, how long they are in sport and all that. It's an indirect parameter for selection for health. And third thing, in the moment, all genetic people are absorbed by that, is the research about the famous genes for all these diseases which we have. This would resolve a lot, but I can tell you, this equine genomic research, we have a lot of hopes, but in the next 5-10 years, we shouldn't hope that this will too much change the breeding business in practice. So we know nowadays about quite a lot of diseases which have a weak or middle heritability, which would be influenced if NSAIDs are permitted. I show you the most important here. It's navicular disease. Navicular disease has nowadays by different authors described a middle heritability of 0.25 to 31. That means about 25 to 30% comes from the genes and the rest from environment. Fetlock joint arthrosis, bone spavin, osteochondrosis, and this PSSM, the polysaccharide storage myopathy, a muscle disease, all they have a heritability and can be corrected by the use of NSAIDs for sure in training, not only in competition. Health problems are important for us. They have implications, also economical implications. You see here the biggest study which was done in the last year by Göttingen people for us from Germany, and you see here in quite high numbers of nearly 4,000 horses here, nearly 6,000 horses. They looked radiographs, and nevertheless for problems of the hock joint were seen about in 10 to 15% at the age, at a very young age, at auction horses, and navicular signs changes in nearly 25%. So it's still a problem. Health problems are a very important topic for breeding and the whole horse industry. So what instruments the breeder has nowadays? He has these breeding values, for sure, which the federations establish, and they are based on national results so far. We more and more try to do better breeding values, so we want to integrate also international results. These are these integrated breeding values. We still have the phenotype, that means how is the stallion looking, how is moving, what performances is doing. We have sport-studied rankings, the famous rankings of the WB, World Breeding Federation for sport horses, and we have also FEI competitions specially designed for young horses. The genetic information we get by that is for sure the best, these breeding values, and the less good singular sport results. But as you all know, the breeder has not only these breeding values, especially in young stallions, he has to look all that. And what would happen if we would introduce again the NSAIDs? Would nothing happen? So we would say, after discussions, I phoned and wrote to some genetic people, but also important people in the breeding business, in federations. Everybody agrees that for sure in the moment these breeding values wouldn't be so much influenced, because these are established with young horses in national competitions. But the more we go then into these big competitions where very famous stallions are competing, there could be naturally in the end an influence of NSAIDs. And here we have to answer the follow question. The question would be, in the duty, this would be now the ethical question, in the duty, because we have also duties, of producing healthy horses, can we take the responsibility to allow NSAIDs medication and tolerate transparency, a decrease of transparency and a decrease of equity, making in the end good selection decisions impossible? That would be the ethical question about this topic. In conclusion, we can say, and I hope you saw that, there exists not one true ethic. We have different opinions of societies. This is a complex, pluralistic topic, an ongoing process, and it not only refers to animals' welfare, but also to the moral attitudes society takes towards animal. And there we have, and this is a bit reflecting the discussions also sometimes in these 2 days, there are regional differences, cultural differences, religious differences, historical differences. We have to consider that. But we are here, one federation which has to resolve a question about NSAIDs, and now we need a more pluralistic analysis, which is not only based on welfare, and this would be based on an outside view of the black box. It's the view of the society, of the public, including values like welfare, but also equity, justice, transparencies, duties, the intrinsic value of the horse we have to discuss, and I think we are not able to do that here in our black box. We have to go out and speak with people from human science, professionals, scientists in these domains. We have to consider not only the effect of tomorrow of these horses running under NSAIDs, we have also to consider the long-term effects, and in the end we have here a responsibility for the horses and riders, for sure, not only the horses, also the riders, but also for an accepted and acceptable, and last but not least, sustainable global equestrian sport. Thank you very much.